Welcome back to a best of 3 series of professional StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a top level match of Protoss versus Terran. Spawning here in game number 1, the top left hand corner of Death Aura, and playing with the blue Protoss probes, we're looking at none other than Trap's main Nexus. Now, Trap is one of those Protoss players who I really should be casting more games of. I mean, I've been casting some of his matches over the years, but really not as many as he deserves, as he is currently widely considered to be the strongest Protoss player on the planet. For a little while, it was a toss-up between him... A toss-up? Haha! Unintentional pun. For a little while, it was a toss-up between him and Stets. However, recently, I mean, spoiler alert, I suppose, Trap ended up winning the GSL Super Tournament, and last weekend in DreamHack Last Chance, he also took down Serral in the Grand Finals 4-3. So out of the... Is it the last 2 Premier Tournaments, actually? Is it the last 2 or 3 Premier Tournaments? I'm not entirely sure, but anyways. Oh, no, that was obviously also the TSL, which I think was considered to be a Premier event. But what I'm trying to say is... Protoss has been winning Premier events once again, which is awesome, because for about a good 2 years or so, Protoss was basically not winning anything, or just, you know, every once in a while, like, for example, I think this was Katowice 2019, I want to say. Every once in a while, there was, like, a new Protoss build where players weren't entirely sure how to, like, you know, play against it, but then obviously the tournament after that, everyone's figured out how to counter that sort of cheese or that early game timing attack. I mean, for a while, Protoss was struggling, and it's good to see that once again, they are obtaining some victories here and there. Now, despite the fact that I'm not casting as many Trap games as I probably should, I'm probably at the same time also casting a little bit too much of his opponent. Playing here with the the red Terran SCVs, in the opposite corner of Death Aura, we have none other than ByuN. What can I say, guys? ByuN has been playing some fun StarCraft. Anyhow, fun StarCraft for us to watch. Pretty annoying, though, if you're the Protoss player in this particular game. Already we see that Engineering Bay block going down on the low ground here. A little bit annoying because Trap was going to go for that 20 supply Cybercore and then 20 supply Nexus as well, only to find that there is indeed an NG Bay on the low ground. Not a huge deal, of course, at this level of play, but it's forcing a little bit more one base versus one base, right? Anyhow, this is a series of games that was played during DreamHack Last Chance, so not that long ago, during the group stage of the tournament. So usually in StarCraft 2, in one of the later phases of the tournament, there's like a single elimination bracket or a double elimination bracket. But usually in the earlier stages, when there's still quite a few players, they play a round-robin groups, meaning that it's, for example, like a 4-player group, and everyone in that group plays a best of 3 against each other. So despite the fact that you now know, the reason why I'm bringing it up, is despite the fact that you now know that Trap won this entire thing, it doesn't automatically mean that he also won this series, because that would be kind of lame, right? If I'm spoiling the results of the tournament and then cast an event or a match of it, right? So I do know who ends up winning this series because a bunch of people reached out to me and said that it's really cool. If you, by the way, ever see an awesome series, please reach out to me, but please don't tell me who wins. That's surprisingly common. Where people are like, hey, Lowko, did you see, I don't know, Raynor versus Serral? I really loved the way that Serral destroyed Raynor. It's like, dude, really? So, yeah, please recommend series to me, but please don't spoil the end results, because, you know, even though that doesn't mean I can't cast them anymore, it does take at least a little bit of fun out of it for me as well. You know, I'm a big fan of StarCraft. Anyways, so one result over here from that delayed Nexus is that Trap decided to go for a fast Stargate. I don't think that was this actually spotted by ByuN? No, I didn't see that. So that does mean that these Phoenixes that are being queued up right now are gonna come out pretty early on, and they're always a bit annoying, right? The nice thing about Phoenixes is that you really can keep your opponent home. If you have a bunch of these flying things close to your opponent's side of the main base, and the Terran player, for example, decides to move out, right? I mean, they're just gonna lose a lot of stuff, and then the Phoenixes are gonna make it back home in time as well, which is very annoying. Now, already that Widow Mine detonated, so it's at the very least... okay. It's gonna get picked up for a little bit there, but the SCVs were pulled in time. But this is just the annoyance right here of these Phoenixes. They can essentially force a macro game in a lot of these scenarios. The only downside of Phoenixes is that once the Terran army grows to, say, for example, 100 army supply, Phoenixes are basically pointless because they get gunned down in about 2 seconds. Well, they're not pointless, but I mean, they really do lose their value as the game progresses, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, you can obviously still use them to lift up siege tanks and all those kinds of units, but it's just, well, that's huge. Wow, that's massive. All right. Gets a free Raven over there. Yeah, I mean, even though that Phoenix got rallied straight through the main base, not ideal. This is a very, very good situation right now for Trap to be in. Gets a couple of SCVs here, but grabbing that Raven is massive. One of the reasons, of course, that Terrans like to grab that Raven early on is that it gives you a lot of utility. You can make sure that you don't die to stupid stuff, right? Like, for example, Dark Templar or, you know, anything else. But you can also use it to accumulate more energy. And then, obviously, in the mid-game, you can use a lot of the spells that are super helpful with a full energy Raven. But, yeah, with that one getting picked off, he's going to be skipping the Raven entirely right now. Not adding on any new ones at the very least, and he's going to go straight into the reactor right here on the starport to probably start pumping out 2 of those. Ooh, Medivacs at once. All right, I was going to say, you shouldn't allow that one in. No reason to give it additional scouting info. Not that it really would have seen anything too crazy. Trap right now following this up with a Twilight Council, so he's going to be able to start up the charge upgrade right now. It's like, I believe it's StarCraft 1 for a while at least. Corsair Zealots, or Corsair Dark Templar, were a very popular unit composition for Protoss. I don't know if that's still the case, but I remember when I tried to get better at Brute War, that was one of the go-to unit compositions. It reminds me a little bit of this, you know? Like, Phoenixes are at the very least similar to Corsairs, and obviously Zealots are still Zealots. Their leg upgrade actually right now is quite a bit similar as well to the StarCraft 1 leg upgrade. Now, this is a little bit awkward, though. Phoenixes just barely managed to sneak away. You can see he's starting to take a lot of base damage on these guys, but it's also because he doesn't really necessarily want to have too many of these going forward. I mean, you want to keep them alive, but you can start taking some risks right now. Anyways, the third base was acquired during all of this. Terran has been pinned back for quite some time, right? Despite the fact that he decided to open up with the engineering bay block, he really has been the one that's been cowering inside of his own base. Decides to sneak out 2 Medivacs, which is a bit greedy because obviously, well, there's a bunch of Phoenixes roaming the map. Luckily here for ByuN, though, he sees that the Phoenixes are now close to his base, and that does mean that these units should be able to get out of there relatively easily. Third base was spotted over here on the left, so he's not looking to do a drop over at the third base over here on the right side. But, well, you know what? Maybe Trap is figuring out that something is not quite right, as he did... Oh my god, dude, these star senses, look at that. He must have been counting the units over there and realized that something was missing. Even though you have very limited intel, this pickup is pretty neat. Nicely done here, because now it means that the Zealots can join the fray as well. And then obviously these Phoenixes, yep, they can swoop in and kill whatever is left over. Nice work right here by the Protoss player, really showing us what he's made of. Medivacs are not really units that you want to lose. Medivacs are very, very painful. You don't really want to give up on them. Another one of those units, obviously, that's energy-based. Phoenixes actually are as well. This is one of the things that I personally tend to forget about. It always feels like Phoenixes can just lift up whenever they feel like it, but whenever you play Phoenixes yourself, you'll find out that if you lift up everything, like lifting up Zerglings, for example, right, in Protoss versus Zerg, not quite what you want to do. Because you just aren't going to be able to lift up actual meaningful units as the game progresses. Anyhow, during all of this, though, we did see the Terran player now also being able to acquire the third base. Difficult for Trap to push into this. Especially with the minefield that's quite literally being laid out right now. I like it. You can see the little potholes over there, obviously, so he knows that there's a bunch of Widow Mines at the very least close by. Marauders are going to continue working on the rocks. Marines stim towards, I guess, the main base now, or at least, well, they want to. Grabbing more of these Medivacs, man, yeah, look at that. These are really beautiful moves. So, you can see that, like, Phoenixes are fantastic, but they're also a skill-based unit, where if you're more active with them, you can get more value out of them. If you're too active with them, though, you might be caught off guard. There's no Storm available, is there? No, not yet. So he's just going to be using those High Templar right now to morph into Archons. These Widow Mines are scary, though. Yeah, these Widow Mines are really, really powerful. Zealots charge forward, a couple of them. Ooh. Well, we'll take a couple of those mines to the face as well, but that's really all the Trap needs. Nice splits right there by him. And now with the Widow Mines out of the equation, yeah, you can start chasing these units relatively easily as well. There's no Prism or anything available, but that's okay. You can just go ahead and warp in at his newly acquired fourth base if he wants to. Alright, now he's going to be starting one up. Yeah, it's difficult to commit to an attack if you don't actually have the Prism close by. Sometimes you may find yourself getting overextended. I mean, I think he could have actually continued pushing there, though. But sometimes you will find yourself overextended and, you know, all of a sudden you'll be basically unable to reinforce it. Still going for the double upgrades, though. Playing very cautiously. I mean, we obviously have perfect map vision. I feel like there's not enough like, beef to this Terran army anymore, although I'm sure Trap knows better than I do. Yeah, playing carefully. Honestly, one of the golden rules of StarCraft is that when you're ahead, you should consider getting more ahead. It's very tempting to try and close out the game, but oftentimes that's a gamble. Taking the 4th base, obviously, is the strategical best move, because, you know, if you have more eco than your opponent, you should be able to win in the long run. A couple of force fields come in as well. I mean, this is still a scary position, though, right? Like, all of these units over here, I mean, there's a lot of SCVs going down. But all of these Terran units shooting from behind the safety of these structures, yeah, look at that. We're going to be able to push at least some of this back. But that's still 12 SCVs going down. And even though ByuN still has an even amount of army supply, his economy is really plummeting right now. Alright. Let's see. I would love to see Trap getting himself the Storm upgrade. I think that would not be a bad idea, but he can also start going into the double Immortal production here. There it is. The main strength of this army right now is the Marauder. There's already a couple of Ghosts into the mix, so... yeah, High Templar would be neat, but... instead, he's going to go right now into the Robo Bay, probably to this to transition towards Disruptors here. Trap setting up a sandwich. Now, this Terran army is still scary, though. There's a lot of supply caught up in Phoenixes that don't really do that much. So the supply counts may be a little bit deceiving. And you know what? ByuN actually has a scary amount of units. Accidentally loads up part of a Medivac over there. But right now, since all the Medivacs are out of the equation, these Terran units are, well, basically sacrificing like 20% of their life every single time that they use the Stimpack ability. They're gonna need to use it, though, if they want to go back home. Alright, there may have actually been a... is there maybe a Zealot run by that I missed? I'm not entirely sure. Could be. Widow Mines do come off cooldown once again, and he actually needs to be careful. Oof. Okay. Immortals don't really care too much. They walk through the minefield, and they're like, yep, nope. All good. He's instead... okay, I thought he was gonna go Disruptors, but instead it's gonna be triple Colossi. Alright. Triple Colossi with the extended thermal lens upgrade right now coming up as well in the Robo Bay. It's going to give those Colossi more range. Still has those Phoenixes alive, by the way. It seems to be that most players really like YOLO those units in at some point. YOLO, can you still use that? They yeet those units away at some... I think that's better. They yeet those units away at some point. Right now they're kind of being given up a little more, but having them available at this point still provides some valuable anti-air. So one problem that ByuN is going to run into here, right, is that since he's a bit behind, he's not really going to have the resources available to get himself Vikings out. Now, Colossi are very, very scary when your opponent only has Marauders to deal with them, right? I mean, Marauders can still be good, but oftentimes it's just a numbers game at that point. There's even a Dark Shrine coming up. Trap has got the 5th Nexus, located at, I guess, the 1 o'clock position or so. 12:30. Whatever you want to call this position on the minimap. But anyways, here we go. EMPs do come down. Ooh, EMPs actually on all of those Archons is pretty sick, but... I mean, the laser giraffes are going to start beaming down. And even though this really isn't the best engagement here for Trap, he is going to be able to start zapping away at as many of these Terran units as possible. And despite the fact that, right, that I felt that Trap was winning this like 8 minutes ago, ByuN still held his head up high, and he managed to make a game out of this. You know what feels good? I know that there's at least one Protoss player watching this right now, right? And they may have been struggling against Terran on the ladder. They will probably feel inspired to go ahead and play some Phoenixes of their own as well. To you, sir, or madam, I say good luck. They're a very, very difficult unit to properly control. That's one of the beautiful things about StarCraft, right? Like, whenever you see a Zerg player using Swarm Host effectively against Protoss, and you're like, okay, you know what? It's time for me to go knight a Swarm Host myself. This is gonna be awesome. Everyone in Twitch chat is telling me that it's OP as hell. You give it a try and then you realize, wait a second, this is a set of units I've never played with before. It's not as easily done as you might imagine. Anyhow, let's see how this game is gonna go. So, this time around, Trap embracing the Nexus a little bit more, puts the pylon a little bit closer to his main base. Not really too concerned, apparently, about walling off this little jump-up pad over here. I like the fact that they installed some lights over here. I'm not sure what's powering those lights, but they're probably, yeah, they must just be solar panels, right? I think the tippity tops right here must be solar panels or something. Not entirely sure. Anyhow, Trap gonna scout around this time around pretty early. Probably didn't really mind getting his Nexus blocked on the low ground all too much. It all went downhill in that previous game, though, when the Raven got sniped, right? Like, getting the Raven sniped, and a couple Medivacs after that, and then a couple SCVs here and there. Eventually, Trap got a strong army out. Maybe that's also the reason why he played so cautiously, you know? He knew that he had, like, 20 army supply or so caught up in Phoenixes, maybe even more. It can be kind of deceiving. Even if you think you're really far ahead, it's easy to accidentally fall behind again. This is one of the things that ByuN has been doing quite a bit in a lot of his matchups, where he basically skips out, well, pretty much any kind of scouting. It's a bit of a gamble. I don't recommend doing this in your ladder games. So even though he's been known as the Reaper King for a very long time, he's been skipping the Reapers quite a bit in the earlier game. Not entirely sure why. I guess the main reason, like for example in Terran versus Zerg, he's been doing it a lot to hit very, very tight timing attacks. So in TVZ, I think the easiest example is the 16 Marine drop. Basically, he does the 16 Marine drop, and then he hits at the same time, but with like 19 Marines instead. Doesn't seem like a big difference, but since Zerg players usually are very tight on their defenses, you might just accidentally catch them off guard as you just hit slightly harder, right? And that's one of the advantages of skipping out that early game Reaper Scout. You're going to be able to get yourself more Marines out. What ByuN is doing right now, though, is reading this game purely off of the intel that his opponent is giving to him, right? So he sees the shade timing over here. That's actually, like, basically telling him that there is going to be a Nexus on the low ground, right? Because that shade timing over there, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Nexus on the low ground, but it's an assumption that he can make right now. It means that he should be safe to, you know, defend the low ground without too much trouble. And that's already why he's going to build up the barracks, or rather the bunker here, close to the Nexus point. Blink upgrade this time around here for Trap really early on. This is, of course, the bread and butter of Terran versus Protoss. Very strong build, if your micro is good. If you're a Protoss player and you're trying to rank up on the ladder, there's a build that I was actually playing for a while myself. I played it all the way up to Master 1 with Protoss. The thing is, right, okay, here's the problem. Those Phoenix openers and these Blink Stalker openers are awesome. The problem is that you need to also be very good at the game. Meaning that if you are not very good at positioning your units at the right place at the right time, or your micro is a little sloppy, like mine is with the Protoss units especially, it's very hard to get a comfortable game going. So there's a build that Trap was playing for a while where he was basically going for a relatively late Nexus. So right now he plants it down at 4 minutes. In that specific build order, he would plant it down at 5 minutes, but he would open up with a Robo Bay and a bunch of additional gateways at the front instead. So it was a quick 2-base Colossi. Or Colossus opener, rather. And, yeah, it just allowed you to not die to stupid stuff, which really is, if you're trying to play a macro game, at the very least, one of the nicest things to do. Highly recommend it. I don't know if I made a video about that one, but if you're really interested, just tweet at me. I think I have the written version of that build somewhere. I can put, like, a little paste bin out or something. Just ask me. Anyways, third Nexus is going to come up right now at the 4-minute mark, so this is pretty quick. So one of the problems you can run into if you are the Protoss player over here is a Widowmine drop, right? Widowmines, very common. He's got that Sentry as well to hallucinate some stuff. Didn't get too much intel, but I guess enough for the time being. Sees that as just a 1-1-1, right? Or a 2-1-1 rather, as a follow-up. But Widowmine drops can be very difficult to defend if you only have like 3 Stalkers, right? You only have a handful of units. And even though you're going to get yourself a couple of those detectors out and you should have detection all over the map, you still need to make sure that you have your units at the right place at the right time. For me, whenever I played this kind of build order, I would find myself with a couple Widowmines in my mineral line, and then all of a sudden, the game ended. Right? Because you lose like 20 probes. It's difficult. It's a very dicey scenario to be in. Because even moving out right now on the map, when you think about this, right? Trap has 1 sentry at home. Your game senses have to be on point here. Now, obviously, he can see with this little observer that most of those Terran units are on the other side of the map, but it's not unheard of to imagine that there's like 1 medevac with a bunch of units that just snuck out, and then all of a sudden, your units are over here. This is one of the things that Parting has been doing for years and years and years, where he basically positions those Stalkers out into the map. I love this. I think it's really cool. So he's got Vision over here on the right-hand side with the Adept, right? And then he's got the Stalkers out front. If you're on point with your Blink Stalker micro and the Terran player marches down the ramp, you can probably slow them down ever so slightly or maybe even force a stimp back, right? It's just that if you accidentally lose those 5 Stalkers, then you're not in a great spot. So what exactly is the Terran player going for right now? Well, this is what I mean. He's got an awful lot of units. This is only the 6-minute mark. I think that these units are probably going to move on over to the third base and then 2 medevacs inside of the main base. Since Protoss doesn't really have that many defensive units, he's going to have to warp in, I guess, inside of the main, and that's neat and all, but he's going to need to... Like, this is a scary amount of stuff, actually. We're already at 28 Marines and then 5 Marauders. Okay, maybe this was actually just... Did he just show these 2 medevacs right there to that one adept? Maybe that's what he did, and now he's once again grouping them back up together. I thought he was going to go for some multi-pronged harassment, which is usually what ByuN is known to do, but... One Zealot over here on the low ground is going to tell us at least part of the story. There's a lot of other Protoss, or Terran units rather, now coming from the bottom flank as well. Battery overcharge being utilized. That's obviously fantastic. One of the medevacs does get picked off here. A bunch of Stalkers are going to be able to be microed back relatively easily. No shield battery over here in the natural, though. And this is very scary, right? Look at this Protoss player now sandwiched. Well, I guess he is the sandwich. The Terran player is the meat in this, in this sandwich, in this analogy. He is running out of health, though, on those Marines, so he needs to get home, but that was very dicey there for Trep. Well, he doesn't need to get home, I guess, but needs to get at least a little bit of time to let those medevacs heal the units back up. Alright. Losing the medevacs is actually one of the biggest deals. Good target firing right there by Trep, but you can see how close that is. Now, imagine that with a later third base, but like 2 Colossi out instead, right? Like, these pushes are much easier to hold. Probably not as good at the pro level. I mean, there's a reason why Trep hasn't been playing it, right? It's because it's like a boomer build right now. It's an old-fashioned strategy. But it's definitely still a good build to play on the ladder. Worked just fine for me anyway. Maybe your results will vary. Alrighty, so one of the most common follow-ups, of course, to that blink opener is indeed going to be the Templar Archives, after a little bit of Robotech as well. Sonic Storm about halfway done right now. ByuN actually mixed in a bunch of siege tanks over here, and he does have the third base up now too. Protoss has no fourth nexus yet. It's actually a little tricky on his map to secure one of those. He's really just focused on warping in units right now. Okay. Zealots, I was gonna say, I don't know if you want to go in for the run-by right now. There's only 1 High Templar, actually. Okay, he's only got 1 High Templar. Even though Storm is going to finish up here, he doesn't really have the energy to get a whole lot of work in. Now, ByuN, he has decided to pull the boys. It's time to go for what seems to be an all-in assault right now towards the Protoss' third base. Battery overcharge, very useful, but got sniped very easily as well. Storm is done, but there's really not that much energy available on these Templar just yet. And I love this positioning over here with these rocks up. The siege tanks in the back are a massive pain in the butt. In the meantime, though, Zealots can be warped in on the other side of the map, and this is going to be annoying. He's only needing to warp in a couple units here and there. 23 probes end up going down, though. Is this enough damage right now for ByuN to actually justify this? I think it already is, but he's got to be... yeah, he's going to have to be looking here for more. And actually, you know what? Those siege tanks over there, very annoying. Bunch of the Protoss units here cut off from the natural expansion. I think they were trying to hide to once again potentially set up a surround there. At the same time, though, the Zealots over here that were warped in from that prism, they're now marching over to the natural expansion of the Terran player, and they're getting quite a bit of work done. Third base has been denied. One of the Storms, though, gets completely whiffed there. Good control by ByuN, pulls back just barely in time. And right now, I mean, the entire Protoss army that was out on the map, other than these, I guess, Stalkers now, they're all huddling in fear right over here in the natural expansion, and I'm not a huge fan of this scenario. How are you going to get in there? How are you going to get out of your base? This siege tank over there on the left is a massive pain as well. That's going to take a lot of shots before you can get damage in. Trep is running circles around his opponent for a bit here, but I'm pretty sure that reinforcing Terran units should be able to clean all of this up relatively easily. Love the fact that a couple of SCVs were once again pulled into this battle as well. What? You run out of Marines? So now we're talking 3 base versus 2 base, and ByuN's still in a strategical advantage here, right? Like this position over here is absolutely fantastic. Another Storm there gets utilized, but the High Templar also gets sniped in the process. Marines ended up going down, but the Marauders are still alive. And that base, that's the natural expansion. It's taken a lot of damage. Trap right now on 1 base. With the third base now also once again re-secured here, I'm pretty sure right now that ByuN, yeah, is going to be able to obtain the victory, right? I mean, there's going to be one final stand here for Trap as he tries to push all of this back. A couple of the units did come in from the side, but even if he cleans up all of this army, he's got absolutely no economy remaining. And even though Trap decides to stay in this game for a little bit longer, he's probably thinking at this point, okay, what went wrong in this game and how can I do it better in the next one? GG is called and ByuN wins game 2. Alrighty, and that brings us to Romanticide. Now this is the map that a lot of you recommended to me, but I figured, you know what, let's cast the whole best of 3. Let us see what ends up going down on this particular map. I haven't seen the match yet, but I'm excited to find out. Usually whenever a game is recommended, it's always a bit of a stranger one, and already, look at that, Trap has decided to send out a probe rather early on into this game to watch what seems to be the other side of the map. Now, I know some of you are looking at this and you're like, okay, cannon rush. That's usually what I see. The problem is, Terran buildings can fly. Engineering base can't anymore, but, you know, Terran buildings in general can fly. So, cannon rushing a Terran player, usually not the best thing to do. One thing, though, that we have been seeing quite a bit indeed is proxy stuff on the other side. Alrighty. So, with a second pylon this early on, I mean, you can see that the gateway is, you know, not even remotely done yet. This is definitely not going to be some sort of Stargate or Robo shenanigans. This should be just a second gateway over here on the other side. Now, this is a build that, yeah, it's very annoying. It's one of those builds that's difficult to read for Terrans because you don't actually know exactly how hard committed the Protoss player is. Trap can just warp in a couple units and then expand behind it, right? And he can, like, take position here on the bottom of the ramp. So Trap also actually, you see that probe? Trying to go for its Oscar over there. He's trying to get an Emmy or something. Yeah, he acted as if he was just getting across the map for the very first time. Trap now even pretending that he wants to block this base. Now he needs to be careful. He doesn't accidentally give ByuN the vision over there of that gateway that's coming up. Takes a little bit more damage there on the probe. He really wants ByuN to start off a CC on the low ground, but that's not going to happen. Okay, good move there by ByuN. He decided to go double gas and now is going into the factory. Seems like a... Like, this is the thing that he's been doing, I think, every single match so far in this series. If he would have gone, you know, straight command center on the low ground, this would have been a disaster. In the meantime, though, Cybercore is done on the other side of the map. We see an Adept coming up here. Obviously, that can help deal with any kind of shenanigans that the Terran player throws at him. But since it's a Marine first, I don't expect a whole lot. The problem is, though, that there's going to be more units than ByuN is usually going to have to deal with. Luckily for ByuN, he's even going now straight into the starport too. Okay. So he's basically skipping all of the, you know, economical focus that a lot of Terran players like to go for. And this is kind of neat. So right now he sees the timing of the Stalker and realizes, okay, this is definitely not coming from the Protoss side of the map. It's just too quick for that. But still, Protoss can just follow this up with a Nexus on the low ground and be totally fine. He decided to go for double Widow Mine as well as a follow-up. And I kind of like it, actually. So what are you going to do? Ooh. Okay. Can't really deal with those very well. Scout over here on the high ground just to confirm roughly what's going on. Sees that the big switcheroo is happening, which is nice and all, but can't really get in here very well anymore at all. Robo Bay, Robotics Facility instead now comes up. You can try and trigger the Widow Mines manually with an Adept, but it's very difficult to do efficiently. So what you do is you shade backwards and then you move the Adept up. Yeah, do it. So you gotta move it at the last possible second, though. This is very dangerous. Okay, well, that's not how you do it. But if you basically have it oh god. If you have it shade away at the... Oh my god, this is going from bad to worse right now. If you have it shade out right at the perfect moment, the Widow Mine will basically explode on nothing. But it's a very, very close timing. It's one of those moments where I wish we had LAN in StarCraft. I mean, LAN in 2021, I guess, is not really a thing right now anyway, as we're all social distancing still, but, you know, those kind of moves would be... You could reliably do them if you had 0 ping. Now, both of these guys, of course, are in Korea, so I guess this was played on the Korean server, right? I don't see why not. Good snipe there, though. Kind of justifies a lot of this early game. Alright, so. Nexus comes up on the low ground. And you can see slowly, after years of people fast expanding in pretty much all matchups, we are slowly ascending back to, like, you know, Zerg players going 12 pools to try and punish very greedy Protosses. And, like, we're slowly ascending back towards one-base shenanigans in the early game, but at a much higher level. Right? If you have been watching StarCraft 2 since 2010 or 2011 or so, you may remember everyone used to play one bases all the time. This is effectively a one base opener, but with, like, you know, very nice strategic thoughts behind it, rather than like, I don't know what to do, I guess I just stay on one base. There's some actual thinking involved here. One Viking. He's been assigned the task to kill a bunch of probes. Good luck, my man. Yep. Vikings 2-shot workers. The only problem is that there's already a couple of stalkers over here. They actually do a lot of damage. It's pretty insane. Oh, he's gonna sec it. Yeah, I guess you can't really get it out. That's a little unfortunate there for ByuN. Still, though, like, how are you gonna get out of your base? Sentry even has been added on here. If you're fast enough, force field on the ramp. It's gonna take a while before the Terran player can really get out of their own expansion. Alright, well, he's gotta be on point with his force field, though. If he is not paying... Okay, he is paying attention. That was beautiful. Like, I just want to emphasize how pretty that was. I thought it was a mistake and he wasn't paying attention for a little bit, but instead he sliced off a couple of Marines just to pick those up. He knows he's gonna have to go home. Ah, okay. Whoa. That must have been a misclick. I don't think that was a... What? That can't be BM, right? No, that can't be bad manners. I mean, it could be, but that seems a little bit funny. Anyways, this used to be a thing we saw quite a bit back in the day when people were like, okay, you get out of my game right now. Is he gonna go freaking Colossus drops? Okay, okay, I'm a fan. I love this. People used to do a lot of... why did he not... Hello. He still actually doesn't know there's this gateway over there. Oh, okay. Maybe he assumes it's out there somewhere or something. I don't know. That's a little bit awkward now. Right, people used to drop mules on the opponent's army just to force them out of the game, you know? It's like, you get out right now. ByuN has decided to go around expecting a third Nexus already, but joke's on him. Well, actually, joke's on me. Looks like there will be a third base started up right now. This one shouldn't get too much work done. Marines in the meantime are gonna clean this up. That base should be cancelled. I'm mostly curious about this over here. So this is a very fast warp prism with a Colossus inside of the main base. Colossus drops have a ton of potential. At the same time, there's a Raven over there in the back of the natural of the Protoss player. But this guy does not mess around. Look at this. Obviously, if he's on the other side, though, he's not going to be here. He can always recall the unit if he really wants to. Oh my god. Yeah, there it is. Okay, he is going to recall that guy back on home. Really cool play here by Trav. I love this. Now, he did end up losing the third base, which kind of sucks, right? Now there's an Immortal in there. Immortal's much better at picking up siege tanks, so I guess that's what he's aiming to do right now. Here we go. He's going to try and break out of this. Target firing there with the Immortal. Needs to try and keep, obviously, as many of these units alive. Picks up the Colossi as it gets targeted down, and he's going to be able to clean all of this up. Can he get a Raven on his way out as well? Don't think so. Colossus, once again, inside of the plane. Starts moving across the map. I wish Colossi did the same thing as Thors do instead of Medivacs, where, like, their little legs dangle out. Even though I guess that would be a slight Protoss nerf. It would be kind of cool. You know, imagine the Colossi legs dangling out of it right now. Could someone Photoshop that for me, please? This is really sick, to be honest. There's a Viking available right now as well, but it's a speed prism, so it should be able to get home pretty easily. Although, oh my god, oh my, he loses it! Oh, that missile turret over there was not expected. And even though this has been a brilliant game so far by Trap, losing the prism there with the Colossus in it is absolutely not what you want to have happen here. The problem is, right, even like losing the prism, it's not that expensive. It occupies build time inside of the robo facility. And since you can't really afford double robo at this point in the game, it becomes a very, very difficult scenario to be in right now. Okay. I don't think ByuN was really anticipating the prism to go, you know, through the natural and then up. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. He probably expected the prism to come in from that direction instead, but either way, the missile turret got a shot or two in, and that's all you really need. At the same time, Terran right now trying to once again intercept a couple of these Protoss units. ByuN trying to bait his opponent down the ramp, and he successfully managed to do so. More and more Protoss units end up going down here. Pylon also got sniped, if I'm not mistaken. And right now, the third base is in a little bit of trouble. I mean, I say that. ByuN can also just pick up all of the units and go into the main base. No Phoenixes this time around or anything to defend this dead space. There is a pylon, so at the very least, that's going to give him some vision over where those units are going to be coming from. But this is a nasty position for a siege tank. Here we go, though. There's still, obviously, the battery overcharge. And even though the nasty position for the siege tank is strong, it's going to be cleaned up. With battery overcharge being utilized over there, though, it's going to be on cooldown everywhere else. So, despite the fact that ByuN probably could have gone off to the third Nexus right away, I guess he wanted to test the waters a little bit more and see how this was going to go. Right now, ooh, once again, Prism running dangerously low. Viking, though, eventually gets picked off. Right now, usually in this matchup, it is going to be the Protoss player who's out-expending the Terran at least a little bit. If you look at the minimap, there's a third command center taken for ByuN. And whenever Terran has that economical advantage, right, that's a good situation for them to be in. ByuN, though, I think he's smelling blood in the water right now. There's actually an interference matrix utilized there on the Prism as well, so it can't drop units at least for a little bit. More Terran units are just simply rallied across the map. Look at this. They're ready to close this one out right here, right now. This is ByuN screaming, get out of my game. Can you drop mules again, dude? Pretty sure that was a mistake. Battery overcharge available once more, but it's not enough. Awesome game there by Trap, but sadly for him. Hey, by the way, did I do the thing that I always get really triggered about? Did I have my scoreboard upside down? Oh, no. Anyways, this game was awesome here. Well played by Trap. The only problem, I guess, for him is that he ended up losing that freaking Prism with the Colossus in it, right? Imagine if he didn't have to rebuild the Prism. He would have basically had an additional Colossus, right? And then probably at least one more Immortal, maybe two more Immortals. That's massive. Like, that's a huge amount of army difference. So, ByuN ends up obtaining the victory in this best of 3 series. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an awesome day. Don't forget to smile, and I hope to see you once again in the next one.